So what happened with this big, hugely attended annual gathering of people who want to save the planet? Joining me to talk about it, Tom Harris, International Climate Science Coalition. Tom, welcome.
Yeah, hi, Jerry.
Good to have you. Now, let's first of all talk about what the reporting is as to happened here regarding the rich countries and the poor countries.
Well, virtually all media are saying that for the first time we've broken through the firewall. You see, there's always been a firewall in the UN negotiations on climate. Back in 1992 at the Rio conference, Brian Mulroney signed a contract basically that said that we in the West, the developed countries, would have to reduce our greenhouse gases, but the rest of the world did not. And that was considered the firewall, and that's what the developing countries want to continue. But the media are now saying that the Lima conference for the first time broke down the firewall. All countries are going to be held to limits when the big treaty comes about in Paris in December of next year. But, well, I'll tell you what that is, Jerry. That's duck speak, okay? Did you read 1990?
It's what?
Did you read 1984? You probably did.
Yeah.
The appendix of 1984 talks about a new language called Newspeak, okay?
Right.
And in Newspeak, if you're called a duck speaker, that's a real compliment. You see, the objective of Newspeak by the government was to make it so that everybody thought the same, okay? They would be able to just shoot off the politically correct language like a machine gun without involving the higher centers of their brain. It would just come from their larynx, you know? They would say things that were politically correct. It was like quacking like a duck. Okay, and they even used the word duck speak. If you were really good at it, you would be really complimented, and you would be called double plus good duck speaker. Okay. Now, what we're hearing from the media in most cases, certainly not in Sun's case, but we're hearing double plus good duck speaking. In other words, people are saying exactly what they're expected to say because that's the illusion that they're trying to create. It's double think. Okay, that's another word that was used in 2004 by George Orwell. But in fact, it's not true. In the very first line of the Lima Accord, it says that the people who are currently drafting the big treaty that we're all going to sign, Harper's going to sign it, Obama especially is going to sign it at the end of next year, that treaty actually has an out clause for developing countries. It says very clearly that their first and overriding priority is not greenhouse gas emission reduction, it's pulling their people out of poverty and development. Now, since 85% of the world's population, 85% of the world's total energy use actually is fossil fuels, and that generates CO2, what it means is that if you're going to hit the kind of targets they're talking about in these new agreements, you're going to have to get rid of fossil fuels, and that is going to thoroughly interfere with pulling people out of poverty and, of course, development. So what it means is that developing countries only, this doesn't apply to us, if it ruins our economy, tough luck. We've got to still hit those emission targets. Developing countries have an out clause. Okay, so all these media reports you're seeing about the firewall being taken down, it's completely nonsense. And the Chinese even said that. They said that their intent in the contract or the agreement for next year is not to rewrite the original deal that was agreed to in '92, but to refine it and to use it. Okay, so there is no way that the firewall is down.
So then my question becomes, if in fact there's no restriction whatsoever on poor countries, because we're not going to bankrupt them, some of them are almost there anyway, but in fact if it were to bankrupt a country like ours, then that's fine. Is this really a move for the saving of the planet, or is it an anti-capitalist, anti-developed world agenda?
Yes, totally. It's an anti-developed world agenda. It's an attempt to equalize the standard of living throughout the world, which for us means going way, way down, okay? And one of the biggest casualties will be people in Alberta, for example, who use coal for their electricity. Okay, about half or a little more than half of their electricity comes from coal. If you're going to hit the targets that are now being talked about, they're talking about a 40 to 70% reduction by 2050 and zero net carbon emissions by the end of the century. The only way you can do that is coal's dead, okay? It's going to be gone, which means your prices are going to go through the roof. Oil and gas will be next. I mean, the bottom line is that if we agree and actually try to engage in these kinds of deals, it's going to ruin our economy.
Do you just carry a piece of coal around with you, or did you get that as an early Christmas present?
Yeah, that's right. Santa Claus gave me a hunk of coal. No, I'm just kidding. Oops, I lost my earphone here. But yeah, I got this in Kentucky. This is bituminous coal. It's what supplies about 40% of the American electricity. Obama wants to kill this. Don't ask me how he's going to replace it. He isn't. They're just going to have blackouts and brownouts across the country. This is also very similar to the kind of coal that's used to power Alberta, Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan. Okay, so this is very critical. This is really the energy source that brought the United States to become the Saudi Arabia of coal right now. So, you know, if the United States is weakened seriously enough, this is a big impact on Canada too.
So they don't want our oil. He doesn't want the coal. I guess they're going to get what Ontario gets, a whole lot of inefficient wind turbines.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, that's one of Obama's major goals, is to cover the U.S. with wind turbines, solar panels. He says that they can replace coal with natural gas. And it's true, we do have a lot of natural gas, but you have to realize that the natural gas doesn't suddenly appear at the generating station. You have to build billions of dollars worth of infrastructure. I often laugh with my, pipelines, things like that. I often laugh with my American friends. I say, it's a good thing that the United States has no debt, because you're about to spend trillions of dollars on a totally unnecessary distribution system of natural gas when your coal-fired stations will give you power for 100 or more years, okay? So the U.S. is just shooting itself in the foot. The only thing we can hope is that the next administration is a lot more practical.
More on this in just a moment. Stay with us on Straight Talk. So we're talking here about energy as this big climate seminar was held down in Lima, Peru, and Tom Harris is with me. Tom, is this group of people who get together, there's something like 10,000 of them. How do they possibly even have a reasonable discussion?
Well, they don't. And in fact, you'd laugh to hear that when I went to the meeting in Copenhagen in 2009, there were 30,000 delegates that showed up. And the convention center could only hold 15,000 of them. So there were actually many, many African delegates who spent a king's ransom in their money to get to Copenhagen, get $200 a night hotels, and they just stood outside. That's actually one of the reasons why there were such big protests in Copenhagen, because they had 15,000 people that couldn't get into the meeting who were so mad. I don't know if they were protesting for climate or just because they were frozen, because of course they set all kinds of records. The Al Gore effect hit in 2009 in Copenhagen, had coldest temperature in a long time. You know, I should just emphasize one thing, Jerry. The whole point of all of these climate deals, okay, Copenhagen, Durban, this current one in Lima, is to fulfill the UNFCCC. And I should define that. Most people don't realize this, but in 1992 at Rio, the Framework Convention on Climate Change was signed. And here is one excerpt from it, and this is the objective of all these UN climate meetings. It says the ultimate objective of this convention, which is the UNFCCC, is stabilization of greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere that would prevent dangerous human-caused interference with the climate system. Now, in 1992, they had no idea what human level would cause dangerous climate interference. And in fact, they still don't know. The fact that we've had 18 years with a 9% rise in CO2, and during that time there's been no global warming, kind of tells you the theory might be a little off. So the whole foundation of all these UN meetings is ridiculous. I mean, Canada should withdraw its funding not only from the IPCC, the science body, but especially from the origin of this, which is the Framework Convention, on which everything is based. By the way, if we get out of the Framework Convention, which you can, Article 25 says exactly that, you can withdraw, then you are instantly out of all the other protocols. So I mean, that's really what Harper should do. People said they wouldn't withdraw from Kyoto, but they did. They can now get out of the FCCC, and I think that's the right next step.
Well, you just mentioned CO2 going up, temperature not rising, the average temperature on the planet for 18 years, which ought to be a bigger news story than it is.
Oh, sure.
But I saw people coming out of that convention, Tom, saying 2014 is going to be the hottest year ever.
Yeah, that's actually hilarious. Those are double plus good duck speakers for sure. And I'll tell you why. For example, in October, media all across the world said the hottest October on record. And of course, the record's only 130 years, but regardless, that's what they were saying. I checked the actual data. The record was set by, get this, 1/100th of a degree. Oh my God, 100th of a degree. We're all going to die. Now, the funny thing is, even more funny, is that the uncertainty in the measurement and the calculation of world temperature is 7/100ths of a degree. So in other words, the records are being set by 1/7 of the uncertainty. It's a little like saying, oh my God, the moon got an inch closer, but you can only measure it to a foot. You know? So I mean, a lot of this is simply duck speak, okay, right out of 1984. It's exactly what they're expected to say. They're just quacking like a duck. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, most people are unaware of this. If I talk to them about the 18 years without an increase in temperature, they think I'm out of my mind. The media,
I know, you're not a duck speaker.
Well, the media have certainly bought it, and they're supposed to be more inquisitive than that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you listen to the House of Commons. It's hilarious. Listen to Megan Leslie attacking Stephen Harper. She is a double plus good duck speaker. Okay, she can actually just shoot off these statements, the hottest October, the hottest year, all these things, without actually knowing that the records are being set by less than the uncertainty. Any engineer or scientist in the audience would just simply laugh. They'd say, come on, that's ridiculous. But they are all duck speakers. They've learned the language. They say carbon pollution when they're really talking about carbon dioxide, which is not pollution, it's plant food. It's riddled throughout the whole climate debate. Duck speak, newspeak, doublethink. I mean, it's all there. 1984, read the appendix. It's got the whole definition of what's going on right now.
Well, I'm glad to see that it amuses you as well. So thanks for your time here.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.